Good morning, MAB Elementary. It's Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. And I can't tell you how happy Mr. T is to be back here in our classroom. It's such a wonderful school that we have, and I've missed it terribly, and I bet you have too. So we hope we'll be back here in the not too distant future with all of you smiling faces at Circle in the morning, with all of our friends and sharing our wonderful experiences that we've had together. So let me go and give you Circle for the day. First thing I'd like to do is tell you about what happened on this day in history. And it was a very, very eventful day in the history of the world. For example, in 1753 BC, that means before the birth of Christ, when traditional calendars have as the year zero, 753 BC, Romulus founded the city of Rome in Italy. In 1509 AD, and I'd like you to try and figure out how many years later, after Romulus established Rome in 1753, in 1509, one of the most famous English kings, Henry VIII, came to the throne in England. He was the head of one of the members of the Tudor family of royalty. In 1898, the Spanish-American War was declared by the United States. And the United States at that time was keen, for political reasons, to evict Spain from the Western Hemisphere. And so we declared war on the Spaniards, who were in control of Cuba. We eventually defeated them in Cuba, but we also defeated the Spanish territory, the Spanish control of the colonies of the Philippines in the Pacific. So the Spanish-American War in 1898. It started on this date, April 21st, with the blockade of the Cuban ports. Cuba being an island meant that the U.S. Navy's blockade would be very effective in forcing the Spanish to capitulate. In 1934, there's a really famous picture was published in one of the London newspapers. It was called The Surgeon's Photo, and you might look it up with your mom and dad. It was alleged to be a picture of the Loch Ness Monster, who was supposed to, this prehistoric creature who was supposed to inhabit one of the lakes in Scotland. So when you research that, would you find out whether or not the Loch Ness Monster is real? One of the interesting things in history. In 1944, not until 1944, were women allowed to vote in the country of France. So that was a huge development, but it was late. If it was after World War II, that women were enfranchised, meaning they were allowed to vote with men in elections. In 1962, April 21st was established as National Secretary's Day. And since then, the name has been more properly changed to National Administrators Day, because these are the really important people who help enterprises and businesses run with the administrative duties. You guys know Mrs. Williams in the front office here at MAB. She's our office administrator. And so if she was here today, we'd give her some flowers, and that would be cool. National Administrators Day. In 1989, one of the most significant events in modern history happened in China, in Beijing, China. It was called the Tiananmen Square demonstrations. 100,000 students went out into Tiananmen Square to demonstrate for democracy and freedom of choice for individual people in China. It's important to remember that to this day, China is a totalitarian country ruled by the Communist Party of China. People are not allowed to vote. People have their freedoms restricted. unlike in democracies like ours, where the people choose their leaders, and if we don't like them, we can throw them out of office. The Chinese Communist Party stays in office no matter what the people think or the people want to do. The Communist Party imposes its will on a nation of 1,300,000,000 people. And the last thing I want to tell you about, in 1994, and this fits with our astronomy class that we're doing right now, is that the first exoplanet was discovered by Alexander Wolzenzan, European astronomers, the first exoplanet. And of course, we have a special telescope up there now that's searching out exoplanets and exploring them with great detail, and we found thousands of them. So that's what happened in this day, April 21st, over the years. What kind of weather are you going to have today? Well, it looks like it's going to be 63 degrees, which is pretty warm. 43 is going to be the coldest. It'll be mostly sunny, 0% of chance of rain. Excuse me. Hay fever time. Mr. T's going to have to clear his throat. The wind is going to be westerly, and that westerly wind is going to be about 17 miles an hour, which is pretty significant. Remember, cardinal directions, the west is where the wind is going to come from. Sun is going to rise at 6:23 in the morning, or it did, and it's going to set tonight at 7:53. And as I always would like you to do on Tuesday is to figure out how many hours of sunlight we're going to have today. That would be a good little math exercise for you guys. The last thing I want to talk to you about is our virtue of the week. Self-discipline. You know, one of the interesting things to always do when you're thinking about words and what they mean is to go, y'all know Mr. T's favorite dictionary. So let me just read you what discipline, the dictionary definition of discipline is. And self-discipline, we'll talk about that. But discipline is a noun, and some of the definitions are the act of making people obey rules. Number 2, a controlled or orderly state, especially among school students. Interesting, they use that as an example. 3, calm, controlled behavior. Right? So those are discipline. Self-discipline is different. Self-discipline means you take those concepts, those attributes, those virtues, and you apply them to yourself. Nobody has to tell you to be orderly. Nobody has to tell you to do the right thing. Nobody has to watch you and make sure you do the right thing. For example, you guys go to the gym and you're waiting on Mr. Smith for PE. Do you guys goof off? Do you guys roughhouse with each other? Do you guys do things that you know you shouldn't be doing and you wouldn't be doing if Mr. Smith was in there with you? Well, that's where self-discipline comes into effect. And it's a really important virtue because for most of your life, no one is going to be telling you what to do. You're going to have to decide to do it yourself. And that's where self-discipline is such an important virtue. And the sooner you develop self-discipline, the younger you are, the better you'll be, the more successful you'll be as a person, and the happier you'll be. Because you won't have to worry about, well, is somebody going to catch me doing something I shouldn't be doing? Because you already know what you should be doing. And you don't do the things you're not supposed to be doing. So you don't have to worry about getting caught doing something that's not the right thing to do. That's why self-discipline makes people happy, and that's why it's such an important virtue. Well, I want to thank you for being with me at Circle Time this Tuesday. It was great to be back here in class. I checked on Billy Bob Joe. He seems to be okay, although the weather is still too cold for him. He'd like it to be sunny and warm. Mrs. J. Terrio is taking care of him and making sure he's getting fed with help from Robin and Bo. So everything's okay here at our classroom at the Montessori Academy. The only thing it's missing is you guys, our friends. So this is Mr. T signing out from Montessori Academy. Have a great day. Work hard. Make that brain strong.